Good morning, SBC. It is Tuesday morning, and I hope that you're ready for an awesome day. I am excited to be able to be, again, back in the office and excited to be back in the ministry. Had a wonderful day yesterday, getting to visit with a lot of folks, getting to talk with a lot of folks, and sharing with some of the burdens that folks have. We're going through those winter months, and those are going to be some hard times, but the truth is that we have a joy that we get to share with others. And so what a privilege it is to be able to engage in ministry on a day like today. So don't know if you're just getting up and rolling out. Maybe you've already had your devotion and you're good to go and you're grabbing some granola and heading out the door. I hope that you're going to have an awesome day today. But as we get started with the day, I wanted to share with you just some fun stuff. And it is just some fun stuff because of where we're at as a church. So you guys know that we're doing the remodel and we're working through trying to work through the process of the expansion and the remodel and everything else. And Sunday we did a survey on chairs and pews. Which would you prefer to have, chairs or pews? And so, hey there, Tammy, good to see you. Glad that you're checking in with me. Good morning. And so we did this survey, and the survey was turned in to find out, the preference of the church. What's the church desire? As a whole, as a body of believers, which would, you rather be sitting in, chairs and pews. Now we had pews that are worn out and old in the sanctuary, and we had them for years. And we've got chairs now that we're sitting in the gymnasium. And everybody's got an opinion and everybody's got an idea. But what was interesting is when the results came back in, the church had no clear opinion. I mean, absolutely no clear opinion. There was no preference. There were people that had the opinion they would like chairs, and there were people that had the opinion they liked pews. But there was no clear opinion from the whole church that we need to go one direction or the other. Now, this is important because we still have to make a decision, but we're not going to make a decision, and this blesses me, that's really going to offend the church as a whole, okay? The only thing that could happen is maybe, a person here or a person there doesn't get what it is they want. And we know that's not going to be a problem. Let me tell you why. Because what you're sitting on isn't nearly as important as who you're sitting with. Did you know that chairs and pews are unbiblical? Oh, I'm very serious. Both chairs and pews are unbiblical. If you believe that, it's just not a church if you don't have pews. Well, it's just not a church that folks will want to come to if you don't have chairs. Do you realize that both of those statements are absolutely unscriptural? It's true. God never intended, listen, God never intended for the church to have pews or chairs. It's true. Look in the Bible. Check it out. Chairs and pews are unbiblical. We should have neither. If you want to be biblical, if you want to be exactly the way God designed the church to be, then you take them both out and you get rid of them. It's true. In the Old Testament, when God had the chance to design his own church, think about this. He's the architect. He painted the blueprint. He created the church. It was a tent. It's called the tabernacle. But it was his church. And you know what he did? He built it without a single chair and without a single pew. When they would strike the poles and take down the tent, there were no camp chairs left sitting on the ground. They didn't have a single one of them. Now, I see Chris is talking to me, and I am glad that you are here, Chris. Great to see you. God bless you this day. And so, when we were talking about this Old Testament church, the tabernacle, there are no chairs and pews. When God designed the temple, the temple, do you know what he put in it? No chairs, no pews. They didn't have them. Not a single chair or pew in the temple. So when we talk about, it's just not God's place, if we don't have chairs or we don't have pews, good golly, we're not biblical. You say, well, that's Old Testament, Brother Dave. We're a New Testament church, and New Testament churches have chairs and pews. No, not really. When Jesus was teaching the 5,000, I know you heard about the feeding of the 5,000. Remember, he taught the 5,000 all day prior to feeding them at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, the scripture says that when they came to him the next day, he says, you're not coming to hear more teaching, you're coming to hear to get more food. And he sent them away. So when you and I are talking about Jesus and the way that he did church, well, not a single chair, not a single pew. 5,000 people on the ground. Hey, Brenda, good to see you this morning. 5,000 people on the ground. And not a single chair, not a single pew. And I want you to know the ground was unpadded. It's true. It's absolutely true. Unpadded. Nobody bought a seat cushion to listen to Jesus. When the disciples were listening to him and they were learning from him, literally walking with him for years under the tutelage and teaching of him, do you know where they had their classroom? It was not in a building. It was always on the move. So when we talk about church and we say, well, it's just not church if we don't have pews. It's not church if we don't have chairs. No, it's exactly church if we have none of it. That's the point. It's unbiblical to have chairs and pews. So, why do we need chairs and pews? Well, because in the history of the Christian church, as we have become more prosperous, one, we've wanted more material blessings. Two, as the concept of preaching has taken center stage in worship. Preaching wasn't always center stage of what the general worship service of the church was. When that became center stage, sitting and listening became much more important, and so chairs and pews became much more intense. The first pews that we have in history that we can find are around 1200 AD. Think about it, over 1,000 years, no chairs and pews. And they just carved a big stone slab into the side of a cathedral. It was unpadded. Oh my goodness, what a terrible pew. And yet, that's where we first see them beginning to develop, is as the church becomes more prosperous and as preaching becomes more predominant, that's when chairs and pews begin to take off. So, let me ask you this. How important a question is it for our church, whether we have chairs or whether we have pews? It's not. It's not important at all. What really is important is the people that sit on the stuff we put in. Let me give you an example. The Bible doesn't tell you should sit on a chair or sit on a pew, but what it does say is it says don't sit around with people that are a bad influence. Even in church. Even in church. Over in Psalm, in chapter 1, actually Hunter Hansen preached on this Psalm while I was sick with the COVID, and he did a fantastic job. This Psalm says this: blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord. Listen, what you're sitting on is not nearly as important as who you're sitting with. Who you're walking with. Who you're standing around with. Who you're sitting beside. You say, well, Brother David's church, we've got to sit with others. Absolutely. But I can tell you for a fact that I have separated young people who were sitting together who were a bad influence on one another. When they start to cutting up, as a preacher, I can go down and cut it out and say, hey, you can go sit with your parents, and you can go sit with your parents, and we'll change where your pew and your chair is. When you and I recognize that who we're sitting with is more important than what we're sitting on, I promise you, church gets real simple and it really gets fun. And I'm looking forward to the decision that we're going to make, whether it's chairs or pews. And I know that when we do, this church is going to be all in. Because that's how we do things at Second Baptist. We do them as a family. We do things together. And we know, especially now, that chairs and pews, they are not what church is about. I hope that you make it a great day, SBC. it has been an absolute joy to be with you this morning, and I look forward to seeing you this Wednesday. I can't wait to finish out our study in Jude. We're going to be talking about how do we draw someone from sin without falling into their sin. I did a video on this a little while back. You might be able to go back and find it. But we're going to follow through on that in our study this Wednesday. We'll have our early bird study at 4 o'clock, and we'll have our 5:30 study at our normal time, 5:30. I know the temperatures are about to drop, and my understanding is we're talking, 0 and such, 5 degrees. By the way, if Chuck Poe is watching this video, God bless you for being in Florida, my friend. I hope that you're having a great ministry down there. But if it's really, really cold and you say, Brother Dave, I can't get out, I'm afraid of the ice, I'm afraid of the snow, I'm afraid of just being out in that kind of cold, it's okay. We're going to live stream it at 5:30, and you can join us right here on Facebook, and hopefully we'll upload it then to YouTube. Make it a great day, SBC, and I'll catch up with you right here at Second Baptist Church.